Welcome everybody to this webinar to discuss the digital marketing strategies course, customer engagement, social media planning and analytics for Emeritus and Columbia Business School. My name is Alex Brown. I'll be your host for the next hour. So just bear with us for about a minute or so as we wait for others to gather. In the meantime, if you want to go to the chat, select all panelists and attendees and just let us know from where you're tuning in. That would be great. I'm in the UK on the southwest peninsula in a county called Cornwall. So again, my name's Alex Brown. I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes. Please just go to chat, select all panelists and attendees, and let us know from where you are tuning in. That'd be great. And please don't be shy. Shally, welcome from New York City. Again, Shally, select all panelists and attendees. Katja, welcome from the Netherlands. George, welcome from Upper State, New York. Fantastic. Gali, welcome from Miami. So lots of East Coast folks. Elisa, welcome from Brussels. Select all panelists and attendees. Priscilla, welcome from Barcelona. Lee, Vancouver. Now it's going through fast. We've got Mo from Casablanca, someone from Brooklyn, Los Angeles, Daytona Beach, Florida. That's David. Kat, select all panelists and attendees from New York. Hernani, Toronto, Canada. I lived there for a little while. Giselle from Miami. Fantastic. Again, select all panelists and attendees. We will get underway in the next 10 or 15 seconds. So I just want to give time for folks to settle in, but a very warm welcome to everybody. What we're going to do today, I'm going to give you an introduction to the faculty, the folks that you're going to interface with on this particular program, talk to you a little bit about the types of folks that take this program and Emeritus itself, provide a course overview, and handle a Q&A. And what I would say is throughout this session, if you do have questions, please use the Q&A tab, which you'll see on the toolbar. That way the questions will persist until I actually attend to them. If you post the questions in the chat, it's likely I will miss that question. You'll have to repeat it. So please use the Q&A for any questions that you have. Welcome Melissa from New Jersey, Winnie from Vancouver, and Pankaj from Dubai. Again, select all panelists and attendees when you're engaging. Okay, so let me get things underway. So this program, which I'm super proud of to work with, is essentially a digital marketing strategy course taught by Professor David Rogers, who's a faculty at Columbia Business School in their executive education. Professor Rogers is a renowned faculty in digital marketing. He's spoken on this subject globally. He does a lot of research. He's a very popular faculty. He's also written a couple of books, and I believe he's in the process of finalizing a third book. The books here, the Digital Transformation Playbook, but the one most related to this program is the Network is Your Customer, 5 Strategies to Thrive in a Digital Age. You don't need the book for this course. We have lots of content from that book available to you in this course. But again, Professor Rogers, absolutely fantastic faculty. You will receive a lot of content that he's developed through short bite video clips. He will also attend a live webinar from which you can ask him direct questions and so on and so forth. So he's the reason why you're taking this program, as it were, Professor Rogers. And then the program itself is managed by what we call course leaders, of which I'm one of the course leaders. We actually have 4 for this program. Myself, I have taught digital marketing actually for lots of years. more than 20 years actually, at the University of Delaware on the East Coast of the United States before I returned back to the UK. So I taught the subject since 1997, seen lots of evolution, lots of change. Over that time, I've participated in several .com initiatives. My focus more recently has been on establishing and managing online communities and so on and so forth. So that's a little bit about my background. I'm joined, my fellow course leaders, Josh Whiten, absolutely fantastic. He's a consultant, has worked in marketing for as long as I've been teaching marketing, and like myself, transitioned to digital. For Josh, it's been over 15 years. He has lots of deep experience in the digital sphere. And Demetris is also similarly very strong in terms of his background with digital marketing. He spent a long time actually as a global vice president for the Sony group, Sony core of digital marketing, and worked in various other parts of the world and so on and so forth. And then our fourth course leader is Michael Tominaga. And Michael actually focuses on the simulation aspects of this program. And I'm going to get into more detail on the simulations as we continue through this presentation. But simulations do actually form a really good part of the hands-on aspect of what you will cover in this particular program. So Michael manages that part. You might have noticed actually for each of the course leaders, I run a case study for IKEA. So you'll learn a lot about what Professor David Rogers covers through the lens of IKEA if you become part of my group. Josh runs a case study for Hilton Hotels. So you'll learn a lot, again, of what Professor Rogers is teaching through the lens of Hilton Hotels. And Demetris does a case study on Lego. So if you're in Demetris's group, and you can select which group you join. If you choose to join Demetris's, you'll learn a lot about Lego as it applies to Professor Rogers's content for this program. Okay, a little bit about you and Emeritus itself in terms of who takes a program like this. So Emeritus, and I've worked for Emeritus now for over a couple of years. I've actually worked on this course since August of 2018, so I absolutely love it. So hopefully you get that. Emeritus partners with top leading universities around the world, of which Columbia Business School is clearly one of them. So hopefully that makes sense. And we've worked with students from all around the world. I think that's a real advantage of a program like this. You're in a virtual classroom with folks with experience in very different industries, but also very different geographies and so on and so forth. So we all learn a lot from each other's experiences from around the world. And we know places like China, in terms of their China firewall and so on and so forth, are very different, for example, than the digital experience in the Western world. Absolutely fantastic opportunity. A lot through each time we run this program. The other thing that I think's really valuable for a program like this is the quality of work experience and life experiences that students bring to the program. So if you see this graphic, 16% have 1 to 5 years. I would call those folks the mobile first generation. They've always known digital. They've always known it through a mobile device and so on and so forth. And then at the other end of the pie chart, you've got 9% with more than 26 years of experience. And I would fall into that bucket. You know, we've seen the evolution several years, actually several decades now, and it's been absolutely fascinating, a fascinating journey. When I first started teaching digital marketing, the digital advertising spend, for example, was less than 5%, and many folks were not predicting it to go much higher. Now we know it's at least 50% of all advertising spend is digital. And digital advertising spend is only a small component of digital marketing strategy. So it's absolutely fascinating how things have evolved and changed over time. So several folks on the course will have lived that evolution, as it were. Okay, so the course overview. So why take this course? And many of you will have seen a cartoon, something like this. What's the big campaign idea? We're going digital. Facebook, YouTube, a mobile app, Pinterest, TikTok. What are we going to do in all these channels? I don't know. We'll figure it out later. Our hope is you take this program, it will give you the frameworks and the thinking to think strategically about digital marketing so that you can plan and create digital marketing strategies that are appropriate for your organization, your business, your experience, or whatever it might be. So hopefully that's why you are here, sort of thinking like that. In terms of the format of the program, we use live webinars, graded assignments, simulations. When I say graded assignments, they're pass-fail in terms of their actual grading. We follow up, make sure you complete to the extent that you can. And we're quite proud, actually, of the completion rate. It's generally over 85% for each of the courses. And that's actually very good for an online experience. And I'm just going to stop real quick and just say hello to some of the folks that, that posted into chat a little bit later. Hello, Heather from Cancun, Anna from Munich, welcome, and Angeles from Buenos Aires. So again, we have a really good international audience here today on this intro webinar, which is reflective of the international audience actually in the program. So it's absolutely fantastic. Content from leading academic institutions. So in this case, it's Columbia Business School. We have guest lectures. I'll talk about some of those guest lectures, but what the guest lectures allow us to do is to make sure we're keeping content very current, very contemporary. It's bite-sized learning. So for example, Professor Rogers's content comes in 3 or 4 minute video clips. Each week you might get 10, 12 or so of these different videos in a particular module for you to then learn from. Peer-to-peer learning and feedback. So the peer-to-peer learning aspect is discussion boards and engagement through online discussions and so forth. We have simulations. We have a search simulation. So you'll be mimicking Google AdWords in that case, and a social simulation where you'll be mimicking placing advertisements on social media platforms and so on and so forth. Real world case studies, and I've already mentioned this, IKEA, Hilton Hotels and Lego. It's mobile. In terms of grading and evaluation, again, it is pass, fail. So hopefully that's all very clear. So the course itself, digital marketing, customer engagement, social media planning and analytics, that's what it's called. It's basically 2 to 4 hours of work a week. I would say if you're new to digital marketing, you might add an hour or two, especially in the beginning weeks, just to get up to speed. So be aware of that. We cover, and within those 2 to 4 hours or 3 to 5 and so forth, we have webinars, videos, assignments, simulation exercises, discussion threads, and debriefs, which I'll talk about more a little bit later. We cover 14 modules of digital marketing in the 10-week period for this particular program. We start off by talking about the digital advertising mix, the key channels, the principles for those channels. We then go into the 5 core behaviors of customers in the digital world. That's why you would take this course from David Rogers. It's his framework, these 5 core behaviors: access, engage, customize, connect, and collaborate strategies built around those 5 core customer behaviors. We then look at the 5-step process of planning, executing a digital marketing strategy. That's obviously very important in terms of planning and executing strategically. and then look at sort of things sort of coming up in the pipeline. As a result of taking the course, you get a certificate awarded by Emeritus in collaboration with Columbia Business School. Both logos and so forth appear on that certificate. On completion of this course, you should be able to understand the behavior of today's customer networks and how to innovate products, services, and communications that customers seek. That's fundamental to David Rogers' course. Use the concepts, best practices, and tools for digital marketing to lead new initiatives in your own organizations. You'll learn how to plan, implement, and measure digital strategies. Think strategically to achieve a variety of goals via digital marketing, such as customer acquisition and loyalty, which you can imagine are two very different things, right? Customer acquisition is top of the funnel marketing. That's what we call it. We talk about that stuff in this program. Whereas loyalty is more bottom of the funnel, nurturing loyalty, developing and building brand advocates. That's something that's quite new in the digital space. That's super, super important. Brand building, market entry, customer insight, and new product innovation. Reach digitally savvy audiences, build deep customer relationships, and create new markets, products, and business models. So that's some of the course objectives and things that you will learn. So what I'm going to do now over the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes is talk about this whole idea of the 5 core strategies and the customer networks that are fundamental to David Rogers' work, and again, why you would take this course. So his thesis is essentially there are these 5 customer behaviors that are fundamental to the digital world. The first one is the customer's desire to access your brand when a problem, a need, or whatever it is arises. So they're trying to solve the problem. And this could be at any stage throughout the customer journey. That's what we call the customer journey, from when they have a problem arises, they're trying to satisfy it, they're doing research, they're going to Google, they're doing searches. So search engine optimization would be important to make sure your content appears. And so on and so forth. It doesn't matter at what stage you are in what we call the customer journey. Your content, your brand's content, should be accessible to satisfy and answer the questions that your customers might have at that particular stage. Other things that we talk about, access and access strategy, is, let's say, an omni-channel approach. And this is very applicable, for example, with the IKEA brand. It used to be in the old days, you know, IKEA would be just all big box retail stores. That's perfectly fine. Then you create a website. Fine. Then you can sell product on the website. Fine. So you now have a multi-channel approach. But an omni-channel approach is where it shouldn't matter to the customer it shouldn't matter to the business how the customer wants to make the purchase and learn about the product. They should be able to bounce from store to online to mobile, maybe now click and collect, and that's becoming more of an issue now with COVID-19 and so on and so forth, right? So that's the customer's desire to access your brand, your content, wherever they are in the customer journey. The second core customer behavior is the customer's desire to then engage with your content. And in this regard, we talk a lot about developing an effective content marketing strategy and how you would do that. And we talk about things like creating hub content, help content, and hero content. So again, in the case of IKEA, not to just focus on those folks, but in the case of IKEA, or I could say Home Depot, like let's take a store like Home Depot, they would have a lot of help content to help folks think about how they might do some renovation in their home. And the idea behind that is if you learn about how to do something with a particular brand, you are more inclined then to purchase from that brand when you need to buy your paint and your brushes and various other things to do that work, right? So that would be the example of help content. but we'll also talk about, you know, things like how do you make content go viral? And we actually have a really good, when we do the discussion threads for this particular week, we ask you to post good examples of content marketing that you've seen in your region of the world. And we see some terrific examples of content marketing, much of which has gone viral, but also content marketing from a B2B setting that's just very useful for that particular business or that particular industry or whatever it might be. So the second, so you've got access, customers' desire to access, customers' desire to engage, and then you have customers' desire for a customized experience. So you've got this whole tension between personalization. We want a one-to-one experience. If we can get a one-to-one experience as a customer, we're going to be more inclined to purchase from you. And there's data that supports that a personalized experience increases conversion and so on and so forth. So you have that on the one hand, and then you have on the other hand, this whole notion of privacy and how the two tensions sort of interact, as it were. We talk about things like machine learning. We talk about things like ad retargeting. So the idea that you might go to a shoe brand and look at some shoes online, put some shoes in your basket, you might not make the purchase, but then later that day or the following day, you're on the internet and you see ads for that shoe brand wherever you go, whether it's on the internet regularly or on Facebook or whatever it might be. How does that happen? That's ad retargeting. Right now, we're talking about the customized strategy in the run that we're currently in the middle of at this point, and we've got some conversation on the discussion thread that talks about this idea of our brands listening to our conversations when we're chatting with each other in our homes. So that can get a little creepy and a bit unnerving and so forth, but they're either listening to us or there's lots of highly coincidental marketing going on. So some very interesting stuff there on the customized side. And then this notion that customers want to connect, not necessarily connect directly with the brands, but also connect with each other. This actually is my favorite sort of customer behavior, and one that I think has seen a massive shift with the development of digital networks and so on and so forth. So the idea here is, as a brand, you need to understand what customers are saying about your brand, whether it's on your social media sites, whether it's on Reddit, whether it's on review sites or whatever it might be. So you need to develop a social media listening strategy and so on and so forth to figure all this stuff out. I find this particular aspect absolutely fascinating, but also you will recognize nowadays when you make a purchase, when you go through that customer journey, that purchase journey, you know, you go through awareness, you go through interest, and you build what we call a consideration set. You're going to look at review sites and see how particular products are reviewed and so on and so forth. And that's other customers sharing their experience with your brand with each other. So that's super, super important. And then the final customer behavior is this notion that some customers actually want to collaborate with brands. And we're seeing more and more of this. And it would be a little naive to think that all our customers want to collaborate with our brand, right? But our super fans, our super loyal customers, they want to collaborate. So some brands, and I would take the example in this case of Lego. So the strand that Emeritus runs, Lego has a platform called Ideas Lego or Lego Ideas or something like that. But the idea behind that is fans can propose a Lego set, and then through, so that's something else we talk about in this, they need to get a certain number of votes over a period of time, and if they continue to get the votes over the period of time, then, you know, Lego may decide to produce that particular Lego set and so on and so forth. So that's an example of direct collaboration, customers with brand. There are lots of other examples. Collaboration in the software industry is quite obviously very popular. I've been doing a lot of reading lately about the online gaming industry and modding and so on and so forth. That's a great example of collaboration to extend the brand, etc. So some really interesting stuff. Again, it's these 5 concepts, these 5 core strategies and customer networks is why you take Professor Rogers' digital marketing program over other very good, very strong programs from very strong universities. This sort of strategic viewpoint that sort of creates a framework that puts everything together. I personally think it's absolutely fantastic. And I talked about the notion that we do this in 14 modules, so I just go through a few of them quickly. We start off module 1, from mass marketing to customer networks, so very straightforward introduction to this concept. In the old days, it used to be very much big brands, command control, get the product out there, get the messaging through big media and so on and so forth, and really control the brand messaging directly from the brand. Now to customer networks, where customers are free to talk about their experiences directly with your brand, share their experiences, which is then easily searchable for new customers and so on and so forth, right? So we start off mass marketing to customer network, or behaviors that I've just gone through in detail. Access strategy, engage strategy, so it's content marketing, utility, messaging, brands as publishers. Customize, connect, so social media community, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, open platforms and so on and so forth, things like Linux, and that's very super interesting. Lessons from brand failures, best practices on social networks, making digital matter, so the metrics behind it, that's obviously super important. 5-step process of planning and execution, organizational challenges, and then to the future. Okay, I talked a little bit about the idea that we also host webinars, live sessions. Typically we have about 1 a week. Sometimes it might not quite work out like that, but oftentimes it does. And we try to host these live sessions simultaneously to the weeks that you're learning that material in the modules. In fact, today, in the run of the course that we're running right now, we have the webinar Remarketing and Machine Learning. So that's this one here. And it's the week of the customized strategy. So machine learning is very important for customization and so on and so forth. So we talk about that in the live webinar, which will be hosted by a colleague of mine, Clark Boyd, and it's absolutely fantastic webinar. So other webinars that you'll see listed here, some are sort of reasonably straightforward, but extremely super important. So you've got Introduction to Google AdWords, and you've got Making Data-Led Decisions with Google Analytics, both fundamentally very important, both delivered actually by my colleague, Josh Whiten, who's a fellow course leader. But other webinars like Success Factors for Sites and Apps is extremely well received. Using Amazon as a digital platform and so on and so forth, very well received. And this webinar list is from the current run. It might change a little bit from run to run. Sometimes we add and subtract webinars. So don't hold me to this specific list, but it's going to be very close if it's not identical. But you'll notice that there is a live webinar with Professor David Rogers. This is a great chance to ask him directly your questions and so on and so forth. So that's obviously another very, very popular session from Professor Rogers. The assignments, and I'm not quite sure, I didn't really label this very well. I realized that just before I was about to start, so I apologize for that. But basically, you have 9 assignments to complete in this program. Assignment 1, customer advocacy and customer networks, is what I would call a nice, straightforward onboarding assignment. We're basically asking you have you been an advocate? Have you left a review and that kind of stuff, and ask about your experience about that? And then we'll ask you about the brand you work for, or if you don't work for one, a brand you're familiar with. Describe its networks, its customer networks, who are influential, who aren't, and so on and so forth. So that's assignment 1. And then week 2, you see search simulation. And in week 7, you see social media simulation. You'll do 3 rounds of each, and each of those simulations, so the 3 rounds of the search simulation is worth 1 point for an assignment. And the 3 rounds of the social media simulation is worth 1 point altogether. And then you have assignments 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, as I've listed here: access, engage, customize, connect, and collaborate. So that's where we talk about each of these strategies. You'll be doing it through the lens of the brand you select. So it could be Lego, it could be Hilton Hotels, or it could be IKEA. So if you're in my group, you'll look at, say, for instance, on assignment 4, you'll look at the customized strategy of IKEA. And you'll analyze it based on information that David Rogers has provided in the content, as well as your own research. So you can go on the internet, Google some stuff, and look at IKEA's stuff to sort of, address those particular questions, whatever they are, right? So hopefully that makes sense. And then assignment 7 is a metrics of measurement. So that's the sort of final assignment, and that looks at measurement. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward. What you need to do to complete this program is to complete 7 out of the 9 assignments by the end of the course. So if you're a little bit late on 1 or 2 of your assignments, that's perfectly fine. As long as you complete 7 out of 9 by the end of the program, you will gain your certificate of completion for the program. So included in that are the 5 core strategy assignments, as I've talked about. And what we try to do for those particular assignments, well, what we do is your course leader, like myself, will provide a debrief for each of the assignments, which is in essence just a webinar where I will have reviewed your homework prior to the webinar, and we'll discuss your homework in the context of some other content, and make sure you understand the frameworks and the material of Professor Rogers, and so on and so forth, right? So those debriefs that are run by each of the course leaders, I think, are absolutely fantastic. And what I would suggest that you do is you consider those debriefs your classroom time. So once a week for 5 weeks, you meet your other classmates and so on and so forth, and we talk about that particular strategy, as it were. So 3 course leaders: myself, Josh, Demetrius; 3 cases: IKEA, Hilton Hotels, and Lego; 5 debrief assignments. So again, we'll review those assignments directly before the debrief, so hopefully it becomes a really engaging set. It's my favorite part of the course. It's the hardest work preparing for the debriefs, but actually undertaking the debriefs is my favorite part of the course. What I will also say is, if you can't attend a debrief or you can't attend a webinar, but you want to watch the recording, that's perfectly fine. You can watch everything is recorded and posted typically within 24 hours of the session. And you have access to all this content, debriefs, webinars, all other content, so Professor Rogers videos and so on and so forth, for a year from the beginning of this program. So the program begins, I think, October 15th or 16th or somewhere around there. So you'll have access to all this content for a whole year. Quite frankly, the course can get a little bit intensive at times, so you're stressed for a bit of time. But maybe in a month or 2 after the course, you want to go back and reflect on some of this material, re-review it, and so on and so forth. You have access to do that for a year. The discussion topics that I suggested, basically each week, looks like bar weeks 2 and 8, we post a discussion topic for you to answer and address. The first one, straightforward, introduce yourself. So that's great. We learn a lot about each other. And then in week one, the relationship between marketers and customers, you're going to talk about how things have changed and the relationship, you know, who has the power in the relationship now, customers much more so than brands, etc. And then again, for each of the 5 strategies and customer behaviors, there's a particular topic of conversation. So again, my favorite is when we talk about the engage strategy, we look at the content marketing examples that you share all from around the world. Some absolutely really fantastic stuff. Some of my favorites include, let's say, the Volvo, the Volvo clip that has Claude Van Damme balanced between two Volvo trucks. Absolutely brilliant. Had 100 million views. No surprise there. But there's lots of really good emotional content. And we talk about why that particularly went viral and so on and so forth. So lots of really good stuff there. But I would say the discussion threads are a really good opportunity for additional learning and learning from each other. I read all the discussion. Each of the discussion threads is actually segregated by the brand that you follow. So there's an IKEA discussion for each of these, and Hilton and so forth. And then I read all the IKEA stuff. I learn a lot from students in the program as we're going through it. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, the simulation exercises that you do are from an organization called Stu Kent. So we have a relationship with Stu Kent. So from our platform, you directly go to their Mimic Pro, in this case, platform, which mimics a Google AdWords campaign. And the scenario essentially is you're a camera shop and you're setting up an online ads to sell product off your particular website. You're given a $5,000 budget each week that you can spend, and you basically, your goal is to increase profit. So profit is your goal, and it mimics very closely the Google AdWords experience. So we have a lot of resources for you if you're not familiar with Google AdWords to help get you up to speed. We have a webinar that Michael Tominaga will conduct to sort of prep you and so on and so forth, and then you do 3 rounds of this simulations. Absolutely brilliant. I recognize for some folks at the beginning it's a little frustrating, all the stuff you've got to learn and so on and so forth, so a bit of anxiety, but those same folks will say at the end of the program that this may have been their best experience because they really had to push themselves to do some stuff, and it was absolutely fantastic. So that's the search simulation. The social simulation, you're basically just a different business. In this case, you're a bag company, and you create designer bags or whatever it might be, and your choices here are to advertise on the various social media platforms, whether you pay for those ads or you just run the content through your own channels and so on and so forth. And again, you're getting a budget, you're competing with your classmates, etc., etc. So you'll do 3 rounds of the search, you'll do 3 rounds of this is what we call the social simulation. In this case, it's actually goes over 5 rounds. You do round 1, and then round 2 is an analysis round. Round 3 is the work you do. Round 4 analyzes it. Round 5 is the 3rd round where you do the work. So that is all run through Michael Tominaga. He is your support for the simulations. Absolutely fantastic. He has lots of experience in digital advertising space. He works for an agency currently in the United States that does very well in this sphere. He hosts introductory webinars. He hosts office hours whilst you're undertaking these simulations. You send him support tickets. He answers those. There are discussion threads dedicated to the simulations. He monitors those and so on and so forth. His goal is you are successful when you tackle the simulation. So hopefully that makes sense. So how did it go? So this is actually from the folks that most recently completed this very same program. So we run this program sort of, you know, we've got a program running right now. We've recently completed a program maybe a month or 5 weeks ago now. And what generally happens is, or at least those that are happy with their experience with us, which fortunately is quite a lot, they'll post their digital certificate on LinkedIn and they'll say nice things. So last night, or was it this morning? I forget now, with all the work that I do. I just scraped these 2 comments off LinkedIn from folks that recently completed the course. So I'll just read them briefly, but just get a sense of what folks think of this course that complete it. Thrilled to announce my graduation from Columbia Business School on digital marketing. During the 3 rich months, I reinforced my knowledge of the 5 customer engagement strategies, practiced Google Ads, landing pages, emails, and gained expertise in social media and platforms communications through deep analysis with the desire to improve and learn. The achievement wouldn't have been complete without meeting extraordinary people along the way. And then they list some fellow students who I just blanked out for privacy reasons. Thanks as well to the professors for their dedication and time. David Rogers, Demetrius, Josh, Clark, Pilar, who's also another of our webinar presenters, absolutely fantastic, and myself. Glad to have done this course, very well structured and delivered modules with real life case studies and hands-on working experience on mock SEO and social media marketing through Mimic Pro and yeah, it should say Mimic Social, I guess. I take this opportunity to extend my thanks to some amazing course leaders, Professor David Rogers, myself, Clark, Michael, Josh, for guiding us through this course with great insights. So just a couple of quick things. So hopefully that gives you a sense that people like this course. I'm very proud of this course. We do tend to get good ratings and reviews and so on and so forth. But it is a consequence of the quality of the platform and the learning from Professor David Rogers. This is the platform that we use. It's called Canvas. In the introductory webinar that we host, which will be sometime, I guess, in the 3rd week in October, I will give a detailed overview of the Canvas platform, such that hopefully your learning isn't compromised by you not being familiar with how the platform works. So that's one of my jobs, is to make sure to ease you in with a nice overview of how the learning platform works. A few recommendations before I finish up and take any questions that you might have. So feel free to put questions in the Q&A so that I can tackle them before we finish today, and we'll finish by the top of the hour. Yeah, we still got 15 to 20 minutes to answer your questions. Key things: stay up to date if you can, block off time, study time, find a quiet place to study and make it part of your weekly routine. Don't cram, try to pace yourself. We do recognize we are in very strange times with COVID-19, and things go on and things happen. So if you do need some flexibility and so on and so forth, that's fine. You need to reach out to us and let us know what flexibility that you might need. As I mentioned earlier in this presentation, 7 before the end of the course, and you don't need to reach out to classmates in the Emeritus team. So take advantage of the discussion platform, share learnings with your classmates, be proactive, reach out to us if you need to, especially if you're falling behind and so forth. And then finally, just put stuff into practice. We're dealing with very practical stuff here. And we're also, you know, this is stuff, if you're working simultaneous, and we recognize some folks aren't due to COVID-19, but if you're working simultaneously, you should be able to apply this stuff almost as we're going through it in the course. So hopefully that makes sense and you feel comfortable being able to do that. Some logistics here. So we always leave this stuff to right at the end, but if you are going to undertake this course, which would be fantastic if you do, there's the program fee, $1,400. You can pay in full in 2 installments or in 3 installments. The program application deadline is October 14th, which is coming up quite shortly. The program then begins the day later. So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you're excited by a program like this. Again, I love this type of program. I love this program. I've worked on it since August 2018. I'm proud to have done that. I've seen the evolution of the course. And I will also add that the course leaders that we currently have, Josh, myself, Demetrius and Michael Tominaga, we've been a group and a team together now for several runs of this course. And I think that really does help also. And this is what you get when you graduate. It's actually digital. So I'm not quite sure why we framed it in this picture, but you get a digital certificate, and hence why I was able to scrape some of that content off LinkedIn. Lots of folks like to post their digital certificate on LinkedIn upon completion of this program. So let me, that's the application deadline. Program starts. I assume you'll get access to this deck directly after this session, and you can apply directly off this. So I am now here to take any questions that I have not covered. So I will try to address those now. Where I am looking is in the Q&A. So if you do have questions, post them in the Q&A. I'll go through each of the questions that I see, and then we'll take it from there. So the first question, will you be dealing with any business models or products specific to the arts? Examples would be relevant to museums, galleries, art publishing. We often get this question, not necessarily to the arts, but it might be to healthcare, or it might be to business, or it might be to lots of different industries. And what I would say is you can apply these models and this framework of Professor David Rogers to any industry. Absolutely. And one of the questions you get asked in the 5 homework assignments related to the framework is, how would you apply this to your own experience? And then we can review that. But certainly in the arts, with museums, galleries, and so on and so forth, we all have our marketing challenges. All those challenges have become digitized. So absolutely that stuff is applicable. So hopefully that helps. We don't have any content specific necessarily to the arts, but you will have an opportunity to engage and discuss that industry in your work. Payal asks, if we are looking to do this for our own brand, will the teachers be happy to answer questions that we ask regards to how to apply what we learn to our own brand? Payal, yes. Again, in the assignments, you'll be asked to apply some of this stuff to your own experience in your own brands. And then you feel free to ask your course leader for follow-up questions and so on and so forth. So hopefully that answers that question for you. Gali asks, I have access to large social media influence here in the US. Will this course and course examples help me profit off these connections? Also, my end goal would be to open a social media marketing agency in France and Morocco. That sounds absolutely fantastic, quite honestly. In terms of answering the question, obviously we talk about influencer marketing to some extent. I mean, recently I've gone through the Engage strategy for IKEA. IKEA is now starting to use more and more influencers in that part of their strategy, as are more brands. I think the influencer industry itself has gone through a few ebbs and flows in terms of really forming and so forth, but it's definitely part of the conversation and the puzzle. So it is super, super interesting, I think, and so forth. So hopefully that to some extent answers your question anyway, but influencer marketing is becoming more important. And again, if we don't have content specifically in the program targeted to what you're seeking, when Professor David Rogers hosts his live webinar, you have absolutely every opportunity to ask him direct questions about whether it's the art, digital advertising for museums, whether it's the impact on the influencer industry and what we could be doing with it. Again, with IKEA, it's not just influencers. In Japan, they're using a virtual influencer, which is, again, something that some folks might think, well, that's really taking it quite far. But in Japan, it might actually work out really well. Mohammed, I don't have much experience in marketing, despite that I've been working in project management, operations management for 25 years. Can you reflect on the challenge I may expect? Mohammed, welcome. That's absolutely brilliant. It's about time you focused on marketing, because we are the engine of your opportunity, as it were, right now. I'm kidding. But the point is, I think marketing is basically common sense, right? Know your customer, deliver on your customer. That's basically, it's quite tricky to do it effectively, but number one is you've got to know your customer, and number two is then you deliver on that customer promise that you're creating. And then along the way, you've got to use digital in a variety of different ways. But Mohammed, I think you're going to be perfectly fine. And yeah, I wouldn't worry about it, quite honestly. Laura asked, do I need to have a lot of experience for the course? I only know the basics. Laura, no, again, as long as you're prepared to do a little bit of extra legwork, I think you'll be perfectly fine. We have a lot of resources to help you be successful. So hopefully you will be successful. And if you look back at that chart on the work experience, there are a few folks 1 to 5 years, and then there are a few folks at, more than 25 years. So we run the gamut here. And I think the engagement across those folks is absolutely fantastic. So hopefully you don't feel intimidated if you're coming in at the younger end. Maybe you know a little bit more about TikTok and Snapchat and so on and so forth than some other folks might. And that would be super interesting. We'll be able to access references and readings online in relation to the topic. We provide some additional resources, Mohammed, but you might then want to Google and find some additional ones yourselves. Absolutely. But we have a lot of content, and Professor Rogers' content is very good and very straightforward. So hopefully that helps. Mindy, and how to use chat and different tech, engage and convert. Is this in the engage? Mindy, it will be. Yeah, I'm not quite sure exactly where you're getting at with this, but that whole framework of Professor Rogers covers it all. It's an outstanding framework, I think. But yeah, it sounds like that's a mix between the access strategy and the engage strategy in terms of what you described. It's Rama Subramanian. Will digital marketing managers from agencies benefit from this? If so, how? So I can't just say yes, because now you're really pushing and asking me how. I mean, it depends on their prior experience. If they're marketing managers in agencies, obviously they've got a lot of marketing knowledge. So it might be a case of trying to just top things up a little bit, just getting a different overall strategic perspective. I think, again, Professor Rogers' framework is really super good from a strategic perspective. So you're basically probably looking at a lot of stuff that you already know, but you're going to be thinking about it a little bit differently, and that can add some value. And I would say that during my time as a course leader in this program, we have had folks that have run digital marketing agencies on the program. So you wouldn't be the first if you choose to do so. Rama Subramanian again. I think I've already done that. So I think I've answered all the questions in the Q&A. So I'm just going to go over to chat to make sure I haven't missed anything on the chat. Will we dig into email marketing in the course? Again, Heather, to some extent, when we talk about engagement strategy, we'll talk a little bit about email marketing in the customized. When we talk about one-to-one personalization, it'll come up there also. Also, when you do the search marketing simulation exercise, there's an email component to that in round 1 anyway. So there are various opportunities to cover email. Catherine, is your course content updated to the most current social media? This is a great question, Catherine. Okay, so I want to answer this question because this comes up a lot. Like, is the course content current? And what I would say is the videos from Professor Rogers, he talks about various concepts that I don't think are very time sensitive, to be quite honest. They're very good fundamental concepts. And the examples he gives that then support the concept, so he uses a lot of case studies so that you understand the concept that he's talking about. The examples he gives then support those concepts in a very good way. Some of those examples might be a little bit dated. And for sure, we do not re-record Professor Rogers's content each 2 or 3 months to make sure everything stays super current. So I'll admit to that. But what I'll then say in defense of that is the webinars, when Clark Boyd presents his webinar on remarketing and machine learning, when Rob Thurner presents his webinar on developing sites and mobile apps and so on and so forth, that's all super current. So the webinars are a medium for us to make sure that we stay very current. Again, the Amazon webinar is another example of that. And then when we do the debriefs and you do the homework for the 5 core strategies, that's very current too. So for example, one thing that I'm talking a lot about when we do the debriefs for IKEA is how is IKEA adapting, let's say its omni-channel approach, to the COVID-19 situation, right? So during COVID-19, when all of its big box retail stores had to shut down and only 11% of its sales was online prior to COVID-19, what challenges has that presented to IKEA? So we talk about that, right? So that's absolutely super current. When we talk about the engage strategy for IKEA, we talk about, well, what should they be doing on TikTok and so on and so forth, right? So there are ways to make sure the conversations in the course are very current, even if some of the videos might be, when you first look at them, you might think, well, that's actually, that example's a couple of years old. Fair enough, but the example, we wouldn't be presenting it. So hopefully that answers that question, Catherine, but that's a really super important question because digital marketing does move very quickly. So the webinars, the debriefs, the case studies are very current. Okay, any other questions? We're getting close to the top of the hour, I believe. So if we don't have any other questions, I want to just say, I'm passionate about this stuff. I really enjoy participating on this course. I learn a lot every run of this course for the very same reason that Catherine asked, is this stuff current? By being a course leader for this course, it forces me to always remain current. And I truly appreciate that. So I appreciate all your engagement, your participation. Hopefully you learned something from this webinar. If this is right for you, I truly hope you undertake this, even if you choose Hilton Hotels or Lego because you thought I was rather dull or something like that. But nevertheless, thank you very much. Thanks for your participation. And let me turn it over. If you have any other questions, thank you very much for program support. So feel free to send them a message at programs@emeritus.org. They just posted that into the chat. And to apply for this course, then they've also put the link for this into the chat. So thank you very much, my colleagues, Richa and Pooja, I think it is, and now I think it's Jitanjali. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but thank you very much, everybody, for your participation. Best of luck, and most importantly, please stay safe during these very, obviously very trying times that we're all experiencing. But best of luck, and thanks for listening. And I will leave it at that.